Good evening. I wanted to go back in here. I mentioned I was going to play around with it a little bit, so I tweaked my sensitivity a little bit. This is my old citation one that was set to minus 90. I dropped it down to minus 50, and I'm curious now how this is going to handle what's going to go on when I try to fly these planes that have plagued my existence so long, particularly the awesome Longitude, because I do love the airplane quite a lot. I don't know where I'm going to fly. Anyway, I love the airplane. It is a good, fun airplane to tool around in, but it definitely has some serious issues that need to be addressed in order for this to work. I'm just going to take off from here. I'm going to be in the Longitude, but I really am interested in knowing exactly what's going to happen when I fly. And I'd like to get rid of the weather. I don't mind wind per se. It's just what happens with the wind that kind of kills me. So I'm going to give myself a bit of a southern wind, which is more natural. I'm going to slow the speed way down to 0. I'm going to slow the frequency, or I'm going to keep the frequency way up, because every 60 seconds, the speed I'm going to slow way down. I don't think it's going to delete it, just like last time I saw when I deleted it and the plane was bouncing all over the place when I took off, so I don't think it's going to do anything. But that's the way I want to run it. So let's jump in here, and let's see how well the sensitivity tweaks like this actually affect the Longitude, because just switching it to the way they did, removing that goofy linear XY graph and making it more of a plotted positive negative scale did make the Longitude much more controllable than it had been previously, but it was still not where it needed to be. Alright, so ready to fly. Alright, so we're going to do the opposite kind of what we did last time. The main issue that we're going to have here is, whoa, hello. My flaps. Oh, are they working this time? Sweet. I'll have flaps. That's incredible. Anyway, we're going to do this a little backwards this time. Last time I started in the TBM with 0 adjustments to the sensitivity. This time, we're starting in the Longitude with several adjustments to sensitivity. So you can see it just starting to twitch on them, and then it just kind of kicks on pretty heavily, and that's the main issue. So it's hard for me to bounce back and forth and feather these things. Yeah, I still don't like the way it jumps, because right now I'm at about 50% on the stick, and as soon as I move into like 55, 60, it just ramps way up. Now I'm hoping I don't have to go full on. I'm hoping about halfway I can kind of tweak this thing, but because it's so jittery and unstable, it always seems to have those issues where it just kind of bounces all over the place. So one thing I'm going to do before takeoff that may help is I'm going to trim my elevator down to -10. It starts at like +7, +10, whatever it is, which is why the plane kind of sucks skyward and angles way high. Usually I need like a -12 or 19, 20 to get it going, so I'm going to put it to -14. Let's zoom this sucker out, and we're just going to take off and head over to DFW. Maybe we'll go to Love again. I'm just going to throttle up, take the brakes off. The wind should be more in front of me right now, so I shouldn't get buffeted all over the place as bad. I'm getting pushed a little bit. Let's angle back. Not too bad. I can see the plane starting to pull. Alright, I'm going to ease the elevator back. Whoa, that is still sensitive. Okay, come on, plane. This is just absurd how jittery this dang thing is. Alright, so I am currently not controlling the plane at all. This is all wind and just random buffeting, which is just nuts. The fact that it's this bouncy. Alright, so we got the tollway to the right. There's Love Field farther off. Okay. Let's put the trims down to minus 23. 22. Bring this nose down a little bit. We'll kind of fly the same route that I did in the CJ4. Let me throttle down a little more here. Alright, so we're at 52% throttle. And too much ATC chatter, but hey. Alright. Man, laggy tonight. Keep this thing behind. I think I should zoom out one more. Alright, so we are at... Let me throttle down because I'm going to angle down a bit here. So we're going to be at 36% throttle. We're coming up. Dallas is off to the side. And there's Love Field over there. So I'm going to make a banking turn and try to line up on the right runway here. The plane is still a bit too jittery, but if you notice, it is much more stable. Because this is all manual flying. I'm trying to feather things and not go too crazy here, but overall, this is the best I've manually flown this thing ever. I'm actually quite surprised that I'm able to keep this thing somewhat in the air. It's still way too jittery for having essentially no wind. I'm not a fan of that, but it is working. Okay, we're at 26% throttle. I'm going to drop the first set of flaps, and I'm going to put the gear down. Whoa, that's a bit of a steep bank, countering the wind. Okay. Guess the gear's not going down yet, but we've got flaps at the first. There we go, here comes the gear. Airport's just off to the right. Okay, speed is coming down. Okay. Love to use the rudder right now, but alright, let me bleed off some more throttle. Let's go secondary flaps. Whoa, 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 whoa. Maintain control, maintain control. Okay, we're going to throttle back up. We're at 34% on throttle. 199 knots and dropping. Come down too fast. 98 knots. I am still going fast. I don't want to bleed off too much. We're getting close to the white line. Okay, we're going to go flaps to land. Oh, I hate how fast that goes. Losing control. Oscillation. There we go. Get it back in. Okay. Now I'm going to throttle back up to 42%. We're at 154 knots right now. This is where it gets really top heavy, it feels like, and just wants to roll. Come on, keep it on, keep it on. Okay, 150 knots. Let the plane come up a bit. Drop it down to 38% on throttle.
500.
Okay, we're gonna need to pull up a little bit. Easy does it. Nope, don't overcompensate. There it goes, overcompensating. Correct, correct, correct. Throttle back way too hard. We're stalling, so this is gonna hurt. Okay, come on now, plane. Yeah, so my flaps were too much. I should have cut that. But, there's two things to take away from this one. One, I suck. Two, the plane was very controllable up until that last moment before I hit the ground. Now, I don't know if there's some sort of ground effect that was causing extra lift on the wings, because as soon as I got low enough, usually what happens in the other ones is when I get low enough, suddenly I can gain enough control of the plane. In this one, suddenly it's like the lift went out from under one of my wings and the whole plane just rolled, which is where I kind of lost a bit of that control. I was trying to work a flare and ease into it, and it seemed like the lift lost, and then I kind of overcorrected the opposite direction, and that's what caused the hard counter bank. And then when I lost my lift on that, the plane just kind of dropped and bounced hard off the runway. And then because I had full flaps and all of that, the plane just kind of sucked back up and then slammed back down in the ground. So that's all fine and dandy. The point, though, was that I manually flew that plane, which has been such a problematic aircraft for so long, very well, actually, all things considered. Is that great? No. But with a bit of practice, I can learn how to compensate that plane. I think if I'd come in without full flaps, I probably would have made it. That probably would have been a much different outcome, or a very different outcome. I can't even speak, but that would have had a very different outcome, I think. I think I might have been able to pull it off if I didn't have full flaps and I'd maintained a little bit more speed. My airspeed coming in, I think, was perfect. I came in a little high, but I think that was okay. The problem just was I lost the lift on the wing, and I just sort of plummeted that last little bit, and then after the bounce, I overflared and wasn't able to hold it. But the plane was flyable. I manually brought that plane all the way in from where I was. That is what I wanted to have happen with that aircraft. That is what should happen with that aircraft, because it is such a fun, good airplane that if that is at least flyable now, then that is a fantastic thing. I look forward to being able to do that more frequently in the Citation. But now, what I want to do is I want to come back to my TBM, and I want to repeat that in the TBM to see what the difference is, because last time I flew the TBM, I had basically not set up the dead stick zone or the dead zones. I had just loaded in. I made no adjustments to the sensitivity whatsoever. So I'm curious now, with my -50 setup for the Citation, how is that going to carry over into the TBM and some of the prop airplanes that I was using a -60 previously to control? So I think we might actually have a pretty decent sweet spot on this, at least for the controller. I might be able to lose a little bit of sensitivity, but the problem is if I take too much, I lose a lot of control, because the way the graphs still work, it is still that goofy linear thing which isn't quite right. It applies full force or full extension on the control surfaces as you get farther out, and I don't want it to do that. I want it just to be slower at moving them across the board, or take more travel to hit the full speed. So whatever, but this is much more improved. I'm very happy to be able to actually fly the Longitude. All right. So let's zoom in and check the controls. Woo, that's a bit much. Control surfaces. Are my flaps working? Hey, flaps are working. Great. So I'm going to go to 50%. Let's say about here is 50%. Counting for dead stick, so that's about 50%. Yeah. Alright, so I should be able to control this fairly decently, I think. We got flaps. Let's go ahead and set some downward trim on this. I don't remember how bad this plane is. I don't think it's too bad, so we'll go 6%. Throttle up, take the brakes off. Angle a bit to the left. Alright, let's get the... Wow, Why am I suddenly... Oh, the torque steer. Alright, let's counter that a bit. Pushing 100 knots. Coming up on V1, 120. There we go. See, I set my trims just right, so the plane took off beautifully. Let's angle down a little more. This is wind now. Let's cut the flaps off. We can zoom out a little more. Alright, we're going to throttle down to 75%. Fly over the tollway. Be quiet, lady. There we go. Alright. Okay, so love fields over there. Got to get used to flying a much slower aircraft. But yeah, we'll throttle this sucker back up. Let's just get it there. So we're at 94%. Keep on the same thing. Okay, there's love off to the side. Yeah, this is much more controllable. This is beautiful. SMU College down there. Nice. Nope, don't go up, don't go up. Got a pretty good thing set up here. Okay, we'll fly over Highway 75 down there. Loop 12. %, on the throttle, 3% on the trims, trying to keep me from climbing too fast, but for the most part this is very stable. I mean, I'm getting a little twist and roll, but that's much more normal. Like, this is what a plane would be doing in the air if there's not a lot of wind. A little bump, a little roll as we move through the pockets of air. Even in a light wind, the plane wouldn't get tossed around like that. We're doing pretty good here. I'm going to prepare to start descending in a moment because there's the airport back there and there's downtown. Go ahead and angle this thing down further and start a descent. I'm going to throttle down to 60%. Okay. There's Highway Interstate 30. We'll kind of loop on that, meet it with 75, and cross in for the runway. See, look at how smooth of a turn that is. I can just perfectly feather it. That's what I would expect out of the Citation, or the Longitude. So I am still disappointed in this Longitude, but I could actually fly it, so huge turn of events. We may be landing on the left runway this time. Okay, coming around. We are way high, which is fine. Let's start throttling way back. I want to come in on the same runway. Let's drop the first set of flaps. Whoa, that was a bit of a jump. Okay, I need to trim this sucker way down. Okay, come on, plane. Okay, there's the trim's way flipping down. I don't need to go nose diving here. Okay, come on, slow me down. I'm at 28% on speed. Alright, we're getting pretty close. We'll go to flaps to land here in a minute. And then we'll need to throttle back up. Let's go ahead and do flaps to land. There goes my speed, so I'm going to throttle back up to 56%. Alright, now I have to angle the plane down a bit. We're at 122 knots, which is the start of the white line for my takeoff and landing range, and I'm angled down, so I'm going to need a bit more speed here if I'm going to flare this properly. So I'm going to go up to 64%. It's not going to hold much. We're down to 118 knots. Lift up a little bit here. Not too much. Much more stable, but I can feel it starting to want to roll. It's probably just because I'm trying to line up with a set target, but hey. Drifting, drifting, drifting. Alright, there we go. On target. Begin to lift up a little. Throttle down to 62%. See, it's doing that same weird thing on the ground again, where it's going all over the place. I am cutting my throttle now. I did not want to go into thrust reverse. Yeah, I had to look over to the side to cut the thrust reverser. That was my fault on that one. Yeah, thrust reverse killed me. But I managed to get it on the ground and it was fairly stable, so I'm very pleased with that. This plane works really well. Not too shabby, if I say so myself. Okay. So, very different experience in that plane with sensitivity set correctly. Overall, I'm going to have to say that the sensitivity is working much better than it ever has before. I think for the jet, the Longitude at least, I might be able to go to a -60 and get a little more stability out of it, but I think I'm going to play at the -50 like I just did and see if I can get something congruent across the board. I think I just need a little more practice with the Longitude to get better, but it still felt a bit too jittery. It still felt a bit too top-heavy, which is not what I'd like from it, but it was a much more enjoyable experience, and I actually was able to fly the plane, get it lined up, control it almost all the way down to the ground. So definitely steps in the right direction. Am I still totally enthralled with the way everything's gone this far in and having no rudder controls? No, I'm still very pissed off at that, and I think it's ridiculous that this is the state that it's in. But I am very pleased to see some positive steps in things that are very critical to us enjoying the game across the board, especially as a casual player using a controller. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.